It was a sunny day, but there was a heavy cloud hanging over Dona Amelia's heart. The flowers in the asylum's garden, vibrant and colorful, seemed to dance in the wind, while the birds sang their happy melodies, ignoring the weight of sadness that surrounded that scene. For Dona Amelia, that place, which had once been a welcoming refuge, now became a scene of loneliness and despair. She was sitting on a wooden bench, surrounded by other elderly people who were talking and laughing. But her voice didn't seem to fit into that symphony. His gaze wandered, focusing on the entrance to the asylum, hoping to see his daughter, Louisa, enter with a smile on her face, like in the old days. But today, the door felt like a barrier between them, and time passed slowly, as if waiting for something that would never come. Louisa, the daughter who had always been her pride, now faced an internal battle, suffocated by the pressure of a life that was not easy. With her demanding job and her responsibilities as a mother, guilt weighed on her shoulders like a cloak of shadows. Upon entering the asylum, his heart was racing, torn between the love for his mother and the pain of being there, about to make a decision that would change everything. When Louisa finally appeared, the sun seemed to hide behind dark clouds. Her face was marked by tension, and the look that Dona Amelia had met was not what her mother had expected. The hope that lit up the old mother's eyes slowly dissolved, giving way to the confusing mix of fear and despair. She tried to smile, but the expression on Louisa's face left no room for it. It was as if the daylight had been turned off, leaving only darkness. "Hi, Mom," Louisa said, her voice shaking like leaves in the wind. Words fell from his lips like a distant echo, faint and lifeless. Dona Amelia tried to hold her daughter's hand, seeking the connection they always had, but Louisa looked away, a gesture that cut Amelia's heart into 1,000 pieces. "Come on, we need to talk," Louisa continued, swallowing the words, as if each one of them were an unbearable weight. Dona Amelia felt her heart sink. To talk? Those words sounded cold and distant, as if a storm was about to brew. Sitting in the small courtyard, surrounded by flowers that seemed happier than them, Louisa began to explain. "Mom, life out here is so complicated. I can no longer take care of you and my responsibilities. I thought this place would be good for you." Each word seemed like a dagger, stuck in Dona Amelia's soul, as she struggled to understand. What had happened to the daughter who had promised to always be by her side? "I don't understand, Louisa," the mother replied, her voice breaking. "I just want to be with you." At this moment, Louisa's expression hardened, and the hug she offered was cold and quick, like a whisper that dissipates in the wind. Dona Amelia squeezed her tightly, as if trying to hold her forever, but her daughter moved away, and the feeling of abandonment invaded the mother's heart. Amelia's confused look turned to despair as she tried to process the cruel reality. Dona Amelia sat alone, watching Louisa walk away, and the emptiness that settled inside her was deafening. It was as if the life had drained from his veins. The flowers, once so bright, now seemed wilted. The laughter and joy that once echoed in that asylum were replaced by a profound loneliness. Feeling invisible, as if her existence no longer mattered, Dona Amelia began to remember the moments when she held her daughter's hand while teaching her to walk, the afternoons when they baked cakes together, and the dreams they shared. Where had it all stopped? What had gone wrong? Tears streamed down her wrinkled face as she became lost in thought. The sun was still shining outside, but inside, the light had gone out. The feeling of abandonment became an open wound, a pain that she knew would take a long time to heal. And so, on that sunny but gloomy day, Dona Amelia found herself immersed in a sea of unanswered questions, with a shattered heart, waiting for a miracle that seemed distant. Days turned into months, and months into years, like dry leaves slowly falling from a tree. Dona Amelia's life in the nursing home followed a monotonous rhythm, a repetitive cycle that left her exhausted and hopeless. Every morning, she woke up to the weak sunlight filtering through the dusty windows. The same sound of furniture scraping and the chemical scent of medicine seemed to mark her as a relentless routine. The hallways, once vibrant with laughter and conversation, were now almost empty, filled only with the echo of hurried footsteps and the muffled voices of the staff. The walls of the nursing home were a faded yellow tone that seemed to absorb the joy, leaving everything in a state of melancholic nostalgia. Donna Amelia spent her days observing the other residents, some lost in their own worlds, others still struggling to remember who they were. Loneliness became a constant companion as she sat in her small room, surrounded by old photographs that were her only windows to the past. It was there, amid the smell of medicine and the soft hum of fluorescent lights, that Donna Amelia allowed herself to dream. Each day, she revisited memories of her daughter Luisa, those that once made her smile, but now brought her a sharp pain. The memories intertwined in her mind, like a movie she couldn't stop watching, even though she knew the ending would be sad. She remembered when Luisa was still a child, with her round cheeks and infectious smile. Donna Amelia would see her running around the garden, her laughter echoing as she played with her dolls. She remembered how the afternoons were filled with stories she told, always with a touch of magic, where princesses and heroes fought dragons together. These bright memories were like rays of sunlight, trying to break through the dark clouds of loneliness. But they quickly dissipated, leaving only a deep emptiness. The nights were the hardest. The silence of the nursing home enveloped her like a heavy blanket, and every noise, a distant phone call, a nurse's call, seemed amplified. Donna Amelia would lie in her bed, the white sheets smelling of disinfectant, and stare at the ceiling, wondering what her daughter was doing. The lack of visitors consumed her, and with each passing day, the hope that Luisa would return diminished a little more. The flashbacks of her life with Luisa alternated between moments of joy and painful longing. One afternoon, they were making cookies together, flowers scattered all over the kitchen counter. Luisa's laughter filled the air, and Donna Amelia remembered how nimble her little hands were as she molded the dough into funny shapes. Now, the only thing she could mold was the memory of a love that seemed distant, almost ethereal. At another moment, the image of Luisa as a teenager invaded her mind. Her daughter, radiant at her graduation, the pride stamped on Donna Amelia's face, who kept applauding. The flowers Luisa had received were carefully arranged in a vase that was now broken in the back of her memory. The sparkle in Luisa's eyes as she received her diploma still shone in her mind, like a distant echo of a happier time. But the reality of the present always imposed itself, bringing back the oppression of silence. Donna Amelia wondered if Luisa still thought about her. Did she remember the stories they told before bed? And the recipe for the cookies they made together? The love that once united them now seemed like a thin, almost invisible thread, worn away by time and absence. Doubt consumed her, and despair surrounded her. Her interactions with the other residents were brief and superficial, like dry leaves blowing in the wind. Conversations about the weather or the day's meals were quick and shallow. With each passing day, the loneliness grew heavier, a burden that seemed impossible to bear. Sometimes, she wondered if Luisa still loved her, or if her daughter had forgotten her completely. Donna Amelia would sit by the window on sunny days, watching the world outside, where people hurried past. Some mothers took their children to the park, and the children's laughter rang like music in her ears. She wondered if Luisa would have children, if she would be the loving mother she had always dreamed of being. These images brought a new wave of pain, reminding her of how life had changed and how far away Luisa was. In the few moments when someone visited her, old friends, neighbors who had never lost contact, Donna Amelia tried hard to keep a smile on her face. But behind that mask, there was a woman marked by longing, fighting the shadow of a love that seemed so distant. The visits were like a breath of fresh air, but always followed by a return to isolation, a reminder that her life was on hold, waiting for something that might never happen. Donna Amelia allowed herself to cry in silence, the sheets absorbing her tears. Each drop was a tribute to the love he still felt for his daughter, a love that would never fade, even in the face of rejection. The years of loneliness became a reflection of her own internal struggle, a battle between the desire to be remembered and the fear of being forgotten. And so, as the sun set over the horizon, Donna Amelia allowed herself to dream once again, hoping that, somehow, her daughter's light would shine again in her life. The sun began to set, dyeing the sky with shades of orange and pink, while Donna Amelia sat down on one of the benches in the asylum's garden. The fresh air carried the scent of the flowers that bloomed at the edges of the lawn, and the birds, in their joyful flights, seemed to have a freedom that she deeply desired. The days passed slowly, but at that moment, there was a gentle calm that enveloped her, like a warm blanket on a cold night. She watched the leaves on the trees change from green to gold, a transformation that heralded the arrival of autumn. For Donna Amelia, each change of season was a reminder of the time that passed, of the memories that accumulated like dry leaves at her feet. As he thought about this, a mixture of sadness and hope arose in his heart. How many times has she wished that life would bring her a new beginning? It was then that in the distance something made her raise her head. The approaching figure was familiar, and his heart skipped a beat. Donna Amelia felt as if time had stopped. It was Louisa, the daughter she hadn't seen in so long. Now a woman marked by life, but still recognizable. Louisa's expression was more serious, with lines of concern drawing her face. Her hair, once shiny and unruly, was pulled back into an unassuming bun, but her eyes, oh, those eyes, still shone, although now they reflected a depth of emotions that Donna Amelia could not decipher. The air around them seemed charged with electricity, a palpable tension that mingled with anticipation. Donna Amelia could barely breathe. Would it be possible? Could that moment be real? With hesitant steps, Louisa advanced, and Donna Amelia felt a whirlwind of feelings stirring within her. Joy, pain, longing. Everything was intertwined like a tangle of threads, and she was about to get lost in this web. "Mother," Louisa's voice was soft, almost a whisper, but full of meaning. Upon hearing her, Donna Amelia felt tears threatening to slide down her face. "Hi, my daughter," she replied, her voice breaking. What could be said after so many years of silence? It was a simple greeting, but it carried the weight of an eternity of love and misunderstandings. Louisa stopped in front of him, hesitant. The two faced each other, and the world around them seemed to disappear. The laughter of birds and the rustle of leaves became a distant backdrop, as eyes searched each other in the hope of understanding what had happened, of rewriting the story that had been marked by pain. "I didn't know if I would come," Louisa confessed, her eyes glistening with the moisture of tears that fought to break free. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I thought I was doing what was best for both of us." Every word from Louisa was like an additional weight on Donna Amelia's heart as she tried to process the reality of the situation. "I understand," Donna Amelia said, feeling compassion invade her being. What else could she do but forgive? Life was complex, and even in her loneliness, she knew that Louisa was also facing her battles. "I always loved you, even when you were far away." Silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken feelings and unshared memories. Donna Amelia remembered all the nights she dreamed of being reunited, imagining what that moment would be like. And now, here she was, standing in front of her daughter, with a burning desire that they could start over. "I have so many things to tell you," Louisa finally murmured, breaking the silence. "So much has happened. I can't believe I let this all get so complicated." Donna Amelia's eyes shone with understanding. It was life, always so full of unexpected turns and challenges. "You are strong, Louisa. You always have been," Donna Amelia said, as emotion washed over her. "But never forget, we are in this together, no matter what." The words came out like a breath of life, a promise that the past would not define their future. They sat together on the bench, their shoulders touching, and for a brief moment, time seemed to return to normal. The scent of the flowers, the singing of the birds, everything seemed to make sense again. Between nervous smiles and silent tears, their reunion was a new beginning. A space to share pain and joy, a time to remember that love always prevails, even in the darkest hours. Donna Amelia looked at Louisa and saw, Not only the daughter she had lost, but the woman she had become, and her hope resurfaced. Beside her, Louisa seemed lighter, as if the weight of the world had lightened a little. And there, under the changing sky, they both knew there was still much to come. Memories to make, stories to tell, and, above all, love to share. As the afternoon shadows lengthened, Donna Amelia and Louisa sat on the garden bench, surrounded by an atmosphere charged with feelings. The gentle breeze caressed their faces, bringing with it the sweet scent of the flowers that bloomed around them. But despite the beauty of the moment, their hearts beat with the intensity of unspoken emotions, as if the air itself were filled with promises and fears. Louisa took a deep breath, her teary eyes reflecting a mixture of sadness and determination. "Mom, I don't know where to begin," she began, her voice trembling. "I had so many fears, so many insecurities. I left believing I was doing the right thing, but I lost you in the process." Each word felt heavy, as if she were carrying a huge stone on her chest, and Donna Amelia could see her daughter's struggle in every line of her face. "I didn't want you to feel this way, Louisa," Donna Amelia replied, her voice soft but full of emotion. "I just wanted you to know that I was always here, even when you weren't." The pain she felt was not only for her daughter's absence, but for the impossibility of having protected Louisa from the storms of life. Donna Amelia wished more than anything for her daughter to know that, despite the distance, her love was constant, like a light on a cloudy day. The tension in the air was palpable, and Louisa let out a deep sigh. "I lost myself, Mother. I tried to be strong and handle everything on my own, but things only got harder. My dreams, my hopes, everything seemed to slip through my fingers." The fragility in her voice touched Donna Amelia deeply. She knew that life was not easy, and Louisa's struggle resonated in her own heart. "Louisa, I wish I had been more present. I didn't know you were suffering so much," Donna Amelia admitted, feeling the weight of guilt mixed with the love she felt for her daughter. The vulnerability in her voice was an echo of years of longing and silent pain. "You are the reason I still wake up every day. The love I feel for you never disappeared, even when you were not here." Tears began to run down Louisa's face, and she shook her head, as if to dispel the pain. "I'm sorry for walking away, for not fighting to maintain our bond, for letting fear speak louder than love." Her words were like a current, carrying with them years of regret and pain. Donna Amelia reached out her hand, gently touching Louisa's arm, feeling the warmth of her daughter's skin, the same warmth she remembered from so many afternoons together. "Forgiving is hard, but I understand that life is full of ups and downs. I just want you to know that I'm not here to judge you, but to hug you." Donna Amelia's words flowed with a sincerity that cut through the heavy air between them. The love that existed between mother and daughter was there, like a thin but strong thread that refused to break. Finally, in a moment of pure emotion, Louisa leaned forward, tears flowing freely. "Mom, please forgive me for all of this. I miss you so much." The desperation in her voice broke something inside Donna Amelia, and the woman, who had been so fragile before, now felt strong and determined. With an instinctive gesture, Donna Amelia wrapped Louisa in her arms. The hug was like medicine for both of them, warming their souls and filling the voids that time had left. It was a hug that said more than 1,000 words could express. A gesture that spoke of love, longing, understanding, and above all, hope. The environment around them seemed to change. The sunlight, filtering through the leaves of the trees, became more radiant, as if the universe were celebrating that moment. The birds, previously just silhouettes, now sang a sweet melody, as if they were applauding the reconciliation. Donna Amelia took a deep breath, feeling Louisa's presence by her side. It was as if the shadows of the past were dissipating, making room for a new beginning. They both moved away a little, looking at each other, and in that moment, smiles began to appear. The love between them was reborn, like a flower that blooms after a storm. "We will rise together, daughter," Donna Amelia said, her heart beating with love and hope. "We have so much time ahead of us to heal and rebuild everything." Louisa nodded, a gleam of determination in her eyes. The road ahead could be long and challenging, but together, they were ready to face any obstacle. Thus, in that garden that had witnessed pain and loneliness, Donna Amelia and Luisa found not only forgiveness, but a new chance to reconnect. True love, even in the midst of life's storms, is like a beacon, always present, always lighting the way, even in the darkest moments. And with the warmth of that embrace, mother and daughter finally allowed themselves to dream again. The sun was beginning to hide behind the mountains, painting the sky with a palette of warm colors that varied from gold to soft pink. Donna Amelia and Luisa walked side by side through the nursing home garden, and the light of dusk seemed to reflect the renewal that was being born in their hearts. Each step they took together was a step towards a future that until then seemed distant, shrouded in fog and loneliness. Luisa looked at her mother, the expression on her face full of determination. "Mom, I promise I'll visit you more often. I can't let fear or the rush of life keep me away from you anymore." Her words resonated with sincerity, like an echo of promises made in the most precious moments of childhood. Donna Amelia felt a wave of joy run through her body. That promise was a balm for her soul, a remedy for the years of pain and longing. "You don't know how much this means to me," Donna Amelia replied, her voice trembling with emotion. She had spent so long waiting for this moment that the reality of having it finally in front of her seemed almost surreal. The years of loneliness were fading away, replaced by a light that illuminated the path ahead. Life is so much more beautiful when we are together. As they walked, Donna Amelia began to share stories from her past, memories of simple moments that now seemed sacred. "Remember the time we had that picnic in the park? You were so excited to chase the butterflies." Luisa smiled, an expression of nostalgia lighting up her face. She remembered the laughter that had echoed that day, the sweet taste of fresh fruit, and the joy she felt at her mother's side. "I remember, I almost fell into the grass, trying to pick one." Luisa laughed, and their laughter mingled with the song of the birds returning to their nests. It was a familiar sound, a reminder that life went on, full of opportunities and joy. The connection between mother and daughter was growing stronger, like an invisible cord that united their hearts. Donna Amelia noticed the change in her daughter's expression, as if the weight Luisa had carried for so long was beginning to dissipate. "In addition to visiting me, I also want you to reconnect with our roots, with your history. Never forget where you came from," she said, her voice full of love and wisdom. Luisa nodded, feeling the truth in her mother's words. "I want to understand more about our family, our traditions, and about you, Mom. I want to know everything." The sparkle in her eyes was undeniable, a reflection of the desire to build a new bond, strong and vibrant. The relationship they had, once marked by distance, was now transforming into something beautiful and powerful. As they walked, Donna Amelia pointed to a leafy tree, its leaves shining in the soft light of the sunset. "That tree has always been our special place. Remember when you climbed up there for the first time? You were so scared, but at the same time so determined." "Yes," Luisa exclaimed, her eyes lighting up at the memory. "I wanted to see the world from above, as if I were flying. And you always encouraged me to try." Donna Amelia smiled, remembering her daughter's determination and the way she had always encouraged her to be brave. The two continued walking, the sun now almost hiding on the horizon, casting a golden light that enveloped everything around them. "Mom, from now on, I want us to have new traditions. We will have picnics, walks, and stories. I want to get to know more about you and tell you my stories too," Luisa proposed, the excitement in her voice as contagious as the laughter they shared. Donna Amelia felt her heart warm. "That would be wonderful, my dear. I would love to hear about your adventures and share mine." The hope that had once seemed so distant was now before them, pulsating and vibrant. The promises of a future together were like flowers that bloomed in the warmth of unconditional love. As night approached, the stars began to shine in the sky, one by one, like small lanterns lighting up the darkness. Mother and daughter sat on a nearby bench, watching the spectacle that nature offered. The darkness was no longer frightening. It was simply a new part of the day, a new beginning. "You know, Louisa," Donna Amelia began, her voice soft, "wounds can heal, and love always finds a way to triumph. Every moment we spend together is a step in the right direction." Louisa squeezed her mother's hand, feeling the warmth and security that her touch gave her. The night enveloped them like a welcoming embrace, and their laughter filled the air with a special glow. They were ready to face whatever came, knowing that together they were stronger. The unconditional love between them was a powerful force, capable of overcoming even the deepest wounds. As the sun set on the horizon, representing not only the end of a day, but the beginning of a new era in their lives, Donna Amelia and Louisa lost themselves in laughter and stories. And there, in that garden that had already seen so many tears, now blossomed the promise of a future illuminated by love and reconciliation. And so, a new chapter began, marked by the strength of love that, once again, united them.